Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 22 of the League One review. I'm joined this evening slightly late because of me. I was walking the dog by Punk Chef 41 Sheffield Wednesday vlogger. Let us know how you're doing after today's result and let the viewers know all about your channel and any plugs, mate.
Yeah, we'll talk about the game later. Been an interesting week. People, just be a bit kinder, please. It'd be nicer. We all do this as a hobby and stuff, and it's been weird. But I'm Punkchef41, Sheffield Wednesday vlogger. I do a Talking Wednesday podcast as well with another blogger called Dirty Box, and I forgot his name there. And yeah, all my links are in the description below. And please come and have a watch if you want to listen to me ramble about Wednesday.
Happy days. And you'll see a new guest below us. He's been on the show before. It's Tom from 4-0 written all over it. A unfortunate channel name after yesterday's result, but welcome to the show, mate. Thank you for coming back on once again. Let the viewers know what you're all about, and obviously links to everything is in the description down below.
It's an unfortunate name depending on your perspective, Daniel, isn't it? Yeah, my name's Tom. I do the Pompey vlogs on YouTube. Been a good week for us. 6-point week after a disappointing one against Oxford. And yeah, as you say, it's all down in the description, and it's just ticked over to 9K in the last 24 hours, which is good news. So,
bang on. Congratulations, mate.
Thanks
well deserved. As always, get your comments in. We've got a few people in the chat. We've got Ian, Rotherham fan. Hello, guys. Hello, Ian. We've got Jonathan from MK Don's evening, guys. Both of those have been on the show as well. Got Lizzie having a go because I'm late.
Also been on the show.
Jonathan saying that it's the pre-therapy. Yeah, I'm going mad because the internet has just decided to pack in at 6 o'clock. It must know that the show starts at this time. And then we've got ADRAHC. Well, Millers slay the Owls. We'll get onto that a little bit later. But if you're new to the show, what we do is we get the fixtures up from the previous week. We'll go through the results and talk about our games. So I think because you're the guest, Tom, will start at Portsmouth against Burton midweek. Tell us about it.
Yeah, well, it's our first win of 2021, Dan, which is, it's really
22.
important. 2022. My apologies. Feels like it's been
a
that
long 12 months.
Yeah, as it's all blurred into one, isn't it? Since about March 2020. As you can see there, we've dominated in pretty much every department apart from possession. Obviously, the main stat at the top of the screen tells you most of the story. One of the most sort of interesting things probably was Gaston Hadway scoring against us, who is someone that we let go in the January transfer window, and it's his first goal for Burton as well, which is interesting. Was a bit of a consolation at the end, a little bit nervy as you can imagine after he scored, given that we scored both our goals in the first half. Yeah, big 3 points. It's meant that we've kicked on, got the win yesterday as well. We've got quite a favourable run of fixtures, so hopefully we can push on from what is the start there on Tuesday of hopefully a good run of form for us.
Yeah, you've just touched on it there. That's your first win of 22 and then followed up with another win. Do you think playoffs are still on for you guys? I think we'll get into it in a little bit more detail later on, but I think last week we mentioned Portsmouth touched upon you guys and said that potentially the inconsistencies may cause you to miss out, but it's looking like they're starting to iron out potentially.
Yeah, if the inconsistencies do sort themselves out, I think we give ourselves a really good chance. All that is important to say at that point is there are a lot of teams challenging for one or two spaces that could perhaps become vacant towards the end of the season. As we said before we went on, while you were sorting your dogs out after the walk, we were we were sort of sat here talking about how there's still a lot of football to be played and there's a long way to go. There's still a good 40 odd points to be fought for, aren't there? So we'll have to wait and see. The man above me on the screen's one of those that will be challenging his team, challenging for that all important 5th or 6th place spot.
Last game of the season could be fun.
Well, yeah, exactly, and I'm sure we'll mention that in due course. But it's important to think that not only will there be teams challenging from the bottom upwards in terms of looking up the table, there's also the opportunity for teams that are in those positions, probably potentially quite comfortably at the moment, to lose their spaces. And as we know, in a league like League One, it's much easier to climb than it is. It's much easier to fall than it is to climb the league. So we'll have to wait and see. what the next. I mean, if we can get to the end of this month with them all being wins since that Burton game that's on the screen, we've beaten Donny, which I know is going to be a bit of a sad topic to be discussing. We've got Fleetwood at Fratton Park in a couple of weeks, 2 back-to-back away games in the shape of Crewe and Shrewsbury in the next week or so as well. So it's a favourable run of games, which at the end of that, we'll have to see where we are.
Yeah, am I the only one who's noticed how inconsistent a lot of the teams in League One are this year? And it seems like every team doesn't seem to be able to go on more than like a 3-game run.
Yeah, I think it's a tough division that everybody can beat anybody. I mean, Rovers have shown that beating MK Dons away and Sunderland away. That's helped teams up at that end of the table out. We've helped Rotherham out. We've kind of helped to close the gap on the playoffs as well. So I don't know if it's inconsistencies or if it's just such a tight division. Maybe I'm not sure. But moving on to the next midweek fixture, I'll hand over to Jake for this one. Sheffield Wednesday 1, Wigan 0. Tell us about it, mate.
We played some really good football in this, and I was a bit worried about this game because it's Wigan. They are a very good team, and it's one of those games where you're going into it going, especially the Wednesday situation, we are very inconsistent, and teams like this normally batter us. And the thing is, we played some really good football. Yes, it was a bit of a soft penalty for us. I got a lot of abuse from Wigan fans saying we cheated, he dived. If a player puts his leg out and the opposition player is running into the box, he's going to go over your leg. End of the day, that's what happens. That's what footballers do. Bit annoyed with Barry Bannon in the press conference afterward, turning around telling every keeper in the league which way he takes his penalties. So that was a bit of a mistake, but it was a good penalty for Baz. He nearly had another great one in it as well. We controlled it. The stats don't show it, but we controlled it. And every time they kind of had a break, we were on the counter. And for a team who at the minute hasn't got their 2 top scorers on the pitch, we're grinding out results. And this was our first time of getting 4 on the bounce in 2017 under Carlos. And if we got 5 today, we would have been going back about 20 years of our thing. So it shows you how much we don't do this very often. We are very much so used to not going on little runs and having that little fella's inconsistency. The nice thing about it was another clean sheet, though, because it just showed the defence is holding solid and doing what it needs. And getting Story in from Preston in the transfer window just been a massive breath of air for us. And it's just organisation which helps.
Yeah, I think you'd expect a Darren Moore team to be solid defensively, though, being an ex-defender himself.
It is now. He's got defender fit, but that was our issue halfway through. I was coming on here going, well, it's another goal we conceded in the 90th or the 80th, or we had a period where it would go to the 10 minutes of the last of the game and we just crumble. Yeah. And the first thing Darren Moore did was bring a sports psychologist in. Something we didn't have. And it was interesting hearing Ralph Rangnick at Man United going, I couldn't believe a top team like Manchester United didn't have a sports psychologist. And I thought I think
it does impact performance, definitely.
Yeah, I think you think about it, you think that's the kind of team that should have it, and we shouldn't because of where we are. But it just shows you what a bit of talking to someone can help. Yeah.
This is why we do this on a Sunday, because I need all the help I can get this season. And moving on to Doncaster Rovers. Midweek, a home fixture against Ipswich. It was a game where I didn't expect much out of it, to be honest, and we got very little out of it. The stats pretty much show the story. A very poor performance from a Doncaster point of view. I think we were set up to try and nullify Ipswich and not concede and be happy with a 0-0 or potentially hitting them on the break. But Ipswich, a very well-organised team who played through the thirds really well. Whenever we pressed, the strikers and midfield went forward. The Ipswich players just found those pockets, especially Backinson. I thought he had a really good game. Just found those pockets inside the kind of centre circle and just managed to play through us far too easily. The 17 shots, 7 on target, nothing really troubled Mitchell in goal. And the goal was preventable, in my opinion. But the better team won out of the two teams there. Can't really grumble with the scoreline. It could have been much more. We've got somebody from Portsmouth. Good morning, Andrew. Clearly it watches the content.
Oh, that follows me around like you wouldn't believe, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
Do you know what? I'd sooner have that following me around than
what you currently got following you.
molestering dogs. I think I know which one I'd sooner have. Other results on Tuesday, if any of you guys want to talk about any of these fixtures, please just jump in. But Lincoln beating Morecambe 2-1, Cheltenham 2, Sunderland 1, which helped teams up at the top end of the table. Plymouth smashing Crewe 4-1 away from home.
Crewe were winning that as well.
Yeah, they were
winning that, man. It's like they did that typical, what are you doing? It's the whole typical Ferguson thing. It's Liverpool, lads. Like going, it's Crewe, lads. You're better than this. Go on. And that's no disrespect to Crewe fan, but it just felt like that with the way they just gone, oh yeah, it is.
Yeah, definitely. Rotherham beating Wimbledon 1-0 away from home. Wycombe 0, Shrewsbury 0. Wycombe starting to fall off a little bit, but we'll get onto them from the Saturday fixtures. Gillingham picking up under Neil Harris now. Gillingham 1, Cambridge 0. Fleetwood getting a very respectable 1-1 draw against MK Dons. Accrington winning 2-0 at home to Oxford. And Bolton beating Charlton 2-1. So that rounds up Tuesday's fixtures. And we will move on to Saturday. We have got a Plymouth fan in the chat, though. First half of Crewe was the worst thing I've ever seen. Second half, though, we absolutely battered them. Ryan Hardy got the goals. Danny Mayer was class again. So
Christ, that's a name I would blap on the path. We had Danny Mayer and we let him go. Nice to see him doing well.
Well, we know about a good first half and a poor second half, or a poor first half and a good second. So I think that's the game that we'll start on with Tom being the guest, or one of the newer guests. Pompey 4, Rovers 0, 4-0 written all over it. The floor is yours, mate, because I couldn't get down to Fratton Park. You were there. Tell us what happened.
I'll talk you through it in as brief as terms as I can, really. First half, from a Pompey point of view, I thought was an absolute shambles. It took us a good 20-25 minutes to put a decent run of passes together. I actually think you probably should have gone in. We said this before we went on. You should have probably gone in 1 or 2-0 up, maybe even. I'm surprised that block was made by Sean Raggett, because he's normally the one to make a mistake leading to a goal rather than doing a diving save to prevent one from going in. But it was a good block. It's one of those combinations between your keeper and your centre half that you just think, yeah, that was really well. So no one really called for it, but you both knew what you were doing there. Second half, I was really pleased with individual performances all around the pitch, to be honest. We knew where the spaces were in your setup, I thought. It managed to engage our wing backs as well, which I think we really struggled to do in the first half, which never really works when that doesn't happen. And I said, I don't know if I said it in the video, I was definitely saying before the game, if Ronan Curtis and Marcus Harness are both on the pitch and they're both not at it, then we really tend to struggle in terms of a performance. That was the case in the first half, and it wasn't in the second. I think Harness managed to get one of those assists. I think it was Rico's goal, actually, on the 56th that Harness assisted. Having heard Danny Cowley talking after the game, he said that his halftime message was to go and free ourselves up a little bit, which I think you could definitely see is what happened. That's what we did. And just in general, really, our season could get exciting if we continue to keep up the performance levels, particularly of the second half. I think if we play like we did in the second half for any game in this run-in now, I suppose we can call it, I think we'll start to struggle and we will lose football matches. But if we play the way we did in the second half, I think we'll win a lot of football matches. One thing I would say is, obviously, it's happened, and much to Daniel's discontent, we can't go back. But had you gone in 1-0 up, I would have been interested to see what the response would have been. I don't think it would have ended up being a 4-1. Our reaction to going a goal down isn't great, and it's been a problem we've had all season. But yeah, 4-0 was the scoreline, and it's unfortunate. We didn't plan to do this just because it was 4-0 written all over it. It's been a couple of weeks. We've been thinking about doing this as the stream and me coming on to join you gents chatting through the games. But yeah, I think really positive. Really good second half and a really poor first half, and great credit to you guys for putting on a show for the first half as well, because I thought you were actually really good.
To be fair, I can't argue with that. You've not gloated too much. And Liz is in the chat. If we put our chances away in the first half, we'd have won that. The fans were turning at half time. God knows what McSheffrey said in his team talk. Potentially, McSheffrey's just said, continue doing what you're doing. But by the sounds of it, Danny Cowley's come and said, well, put a rocket up the backside of every single player and got a response from them. And I just don't think we've got enough characters or leaders to weather a storm at the minute. When we go 1 or 2 down, we just seem to crumble. We've seen it at Morecambe, 3-0 up at
You're quite a
half-time.
young team as well, aren't you?
Say again, sorry?
You're quite a young team at the minute with some of the transfers you've got in now.
Yeah, and I think we're missing some key players, you likes of Tom Anderson and players like that who can actually talk to the youngsters and guide them through a game. But we don't seem to see any of these injuries starting to come back or even wanting to come back, and that to me shows a lack of character and a
How
lack
long's
of
Ben
desire to
Close
get
out for, Daniel?
He won't be back until next season. So there's been a number of injuries where we've been told that they'll be out for 3 to 4 weeks, and then it's gone to a couple of months, and then it's gone to 3 to 4 months. So I'd like to have an investigation done to see what's actually happening, and think from an injury point of view and just from the capitulation from around this time last year where we were points off of the top with games in hand. It's just been such a horrid run of, well, a horrid period to watch Doncaster Rovers, in all honesty. Maybe League Two, we might be able to rebuild and bounce straight back. I'm not sure with this squad that we've got the characters in there to do that, but only time will tell. And Lizzie kind of backing me up there, very conveniently absent some of the injured players. Yeah, I think they're not wanting to put the name to this to this very poor season, unfortunately. But promising from the first half. Just a shame that we couldn't continue that in the second. So once again, thank you for your input, Tom, and thanks for not gloating too much that you absolutely.
I can't, to be honest, I can't gloat too much because the first half was so dreadful from our point of view. I mean, you look at the scoreline and you think, well, that's such a dominant one, but it by all means it wasn't.
There we go. It doesn't make me feel any better.
No, I'm doing my best.
Cheers, mate. And we'll move on to another one from the early game today. Sheffield Wednesday 0, Rotherham 2. Managed to catch bits of it, but Jake, talk us through this. It sounded like you were pretty dominant.
I'm gutted by it because it's that typical thing where when they play well and then don't get the points, and it shows that we have two of our top scorers injured at the minute and sat in the stands. Couldn't take chances. And much of Patterson's plays here, there, and everywhere. He's not a striker. He's never been a striker a day in his life. But he's a very good player. He holds it up. And there were chances in that game that we could have taken. Lang had a great chance. Lang with some great work because of the pitch. And everyone said about our pitch is terrible. It's been chucking it down in South Yorkshire since about Friday. So there's a reason why our pitch is rubbish. And we've had back-to-back home games on it. Yes, it was horrible. Yes, it wasn't a swimming pool. But both sets of teams have to play on that pitch. So we can't say anything about the pitch. But we had chances. We didn't take on. We did get the ball in the back of the net. It was offside, and it was clearly offside, to be fair. Yeah. And it was just one of those games. And Rotherham are very, very good at just grinding out results, even if they're not playing very well. And their corner that they got, it wasn't a corner. You've seen it from the still I showed you. The ball is in his hand. He kept it in, but League One officials. That's all we need to say. But Wednesday, typical.
Especially corners, Darren Drysdale.
Yeah. There was a clear
why he's
pull.
Been given that game, I don't understand.
Now, there was a clear pull on Liam Palmer in the second half for a penalty. It didn't get given, and it's like, okay, fair enough. But we don't. Yeah, you can say it wasn't a corner, but we don't defend the corner well. The corner comes in, it's really bad defending. Patterson's on the line. He should be putting his body to it. He kind of like moves out the way, a la Matrix style. And it was such a shame because we played some really good football going forward. And it's another day with a striker. That's not a 2-0 game. We win that game personally because we are really good at getting forward. And it's a game that you should have won when Paul Warren comes out and goes, I don't know how we won that. That was a really good game for them and gave us a lot of credit. Michael Smith goal, though, it was a cracker. You can't stop them. It was absolutely superb. You don't give that man that much space at all because he's gonna hit it.
It weren't that much space, in fairness to him.
It looked like a lot of space from where we were watching because we're so used to seeing players hit them from there and we don't close down quick enough. And that's our issue. And it's just a shame because you look at the stats, we absolutely battered them, but no clinicalness, like 6 shots on target to their 2 and they score it. And it just shows you what it is. And that football. But if you told me start of the week we get 3 points at Wigan and then batter Rotherham and then not come away with the points, I'd still be happy with that because they put a shift in, they showed us what they can do, and there's hope there if our striker come back fit. I put on that I was proud of the performance. I got, you're proud of that. I was like, I absolutely loved how that performance played.
I think it shows as well with Ian in the chat here saying that almost feels as though should apologise for the win for today, but he thinks Mendes Lang's a bit of a donkey.
Yeah, he's a little bit.
But Rotherham fan also
good.
saying
Don't get me wrong. He's very, very good, Mendes Lang, for this division. But some of the decision making is a bit weird.
So an unfortunate defeat for Sheffield Wednesday. Rotherham fans are happy. Andy,
as Ian said, we've given them their cup final.
So Andy's saying that he didn't batter us, had the possession, but nothing with it. Completely different to battering us.
Look at the stats. You had 2 shots on target, and you scored both of them. We have 6 to 15.
This is a good thing about football. It's full of opinions, and there we go.
Yeah.
So we will now whip around the grounds from Saturday, starting at Plymouth, who managed a narrow 1-0 win against Shrewsbury, and a wonderful goal from Conor Grant, who just ghosts in. Do you want to take this one, Tom? Have a few words about this one. Plymouth 10 points from 12, not doing too bad.
Yeah, I mean it's well, I suppose there is a little bit of an argument for Pompey Plymouth, a little bit of a, I don't want to use the R word, but there is a kind of a bit of a thing going on there, 2 dockyards, that sort of thing. Yeah, you just mentioned it, but it's a great strike from Conor Grant. He's arguably man of the match on that one as well. He sounds like he had a really good game. As you can see, it's a narrow win, but they have almost dominated in every single department, haven't they, Plymouth? So you got to hand it to them there. For me, the strange thing is, and I've been saying it since the start of the season, I think Plymouth will be one of those teams that we were talking about at the top of the show where that place isn't cemented in stone for them in the playoffs. Yeah. And I think, although they have got a couple, I think it's 1 or 2 games in hand on most teams in the division, they are, and one of them actually is against us, funnily enough. And I don't actually think that they will be in the playoffs come the end of the season. I think they will just miss out, and it will be one of the teams underneath them or above them, however it turns out, that will displace them from that position. I think the Ryan Lowe departure disrupted them a little bit, and I think it meant they lost their way. And had they picked up results in that small window between Schumacher really taking charge of what was going on and Ryan Lowe leaving, then I think we're probably having a different conversation. But for me, I think Plymouth are just very slow, and I might be completely wrong, and they might get in the playoffs and win it. Who knows? But I think for me, just because of the way they played at Fratton Park early on the season, they're very good on the counter. So they're probably one of the best teams in the league at the counter-attack football. But for me, it just doesn't have. They don't quite have the perhaps longevity of size like Portsmouth, Sheffield Wednesday. You know, the teams that maybe even Ipswich Town. These big names in League One that will probably have the legs to get there. Plymouth, for me, I don't think they will.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. They had a fantastic start. They were the pace setters. They've had a little bit of a wobble. It's seeing if they've got that something about them to kind of get that train back on the tracks and push on, as we said, in this little bit of a running. Lizzie, so ex-Rovers scorer Claxton. So yeah, Conor Grant used to play for the Rovers. If you are drinking, if you're playing the drinking game, take a drink. There's another one coming up later on in the show. On to Burton 2, Cambridge 2. So bit of a nothing game, this one, in my opinion, coming into it. Both teams yet to earn a point in February, and it was pointing towards a bit of a 0-0 draw maybe, but entertaining for the fans 2-2. You want to take this one, Jake?
Yeah, it's Burton play some really good football at times, and you can see how they're going forward. They know what they're doing, and penalties, you get them, and you can put them away. Brilliant. But
ex-Pompey scorer Claxton, by the way.
There we go.
There you go.
We're all at it this week.
There you go.
Andy, just drop it now, mate. I've had enough. But yeah, it's that one of those games where you see it going this game, and 2-2. I think it's quite a good result for Cambridge, that, and they're doing the business to stay up. They're the one team that come up who seem to have done really well and settled to it. I thought they were going to struggle a lot in this league, and they haven't done. They've actually managed to set up well, and I don't know. Burton are one of those ones where some of the days they can do really well and batter teams and actually play some good football, but I think they're in that kind of middle bit where they're not too sure if they're going to go from that middle table to playoffs. You know what I mean? And there's a couple of teams there.
Team, aren't they?
Yeah.
But question marks on Cambridge was Mullin going to Wrexham. I think it was questions on where Cambridge were going to find those goals. And like you say, they seem to be settling into League One fairly well. Will they avoid the drop? I think they will.
A lot of people had them to go down as well, didn't they? Start of the season because of that Mullins thing, but they proved people wrong, haven't they?
Yeah, I had him in my bottom four, but I had Donny in 14. So what do I know? On to Oxford against Bolton. We've got a couple in the chat. We've got Captain Nat, who's a regular, evening Captain Nat. Jake Tong. I was on a podcast with him earlier. Please go ahead and follow him. I'll tweet it after the show. A link to that. It was nice having a chat. I did enjoy the game, but unfortunately, I don't support either one of them, so it's tough for me. But on to Oxford against Bolton, and I think Oxford's last couple of home games have finished 3-2, one way or the other.
Yeah.
Billy Bowden, fantastic. The Billy Bowden show.
Beat us 3-2.
Yeah.
Beat us 3-2
but this time they were on the receiving end of a 3-2, and Bolton just starting to move up the table a little bit. They did the same last season, where coming up to the end of the season they started picking up points and consistently picking up points. Do you think they'll be doing that again this season and potentially an outside chance of getting into the playoffs and, like I say, Tom, displacing one of those teams that are already in there?
Yeah, I'd like to hope so. I think, we played Oxford last weekend, which, as we said, was 3-2, and a bit bitter of me to say, but I think we arguably should have won that game. End product-wise, I thought they were a little bit lacking, and only really found their way back into our game with a pair of unstoppable strikes that our keeper had no chance. Looking ahead to this one, sort of before the weekend, I was thinking that's going to be a physical game, and there's going to be a real fight for the points. And Bolton have, they've obviously had a really good away day on that one, because it looks like they've responded on a couple of occasions, quite quickly actually, for their first goal as well, which is the similar sort of way it happened when we were playing them. Bolton are one of the most informed sides around at the moment, aren't they? They've had a really sort of good couple of weeks. I think he did score actually. Marlon Fossey has been a real standout in the last couple of weeks. I think he had a really good game in that one. And
finish as well for the second goal.
It was. And you think, I know Oxford are in and around there, and I actually think that Wednesday result today, although it's incredibly upsetting for some of us on the stream, has actually helped Oxford in their fight to push for those playoff places as well. And who knows? I don't think mathematically Bolton are out of it either. I mean, if they keep on this trajectory, then we could be talking about them in the playoff conversation. So, as we said, League One, anything can happen. And
like we said earlier, there's plenty of points to play for. You never know. Donny may yet avoid the drop. On to Wimbledon against Sunderland. So this was Alex Neil's first game in charge. And he's stopped the rot, should we say? I think. A little bit. They've lost the last couple of games. Jake, on this one, McCormick penalty, Pritchard, wonderful free kick to
really was
to equalise. But do you think Sunderland are one of the teams that could be slipping out of the top six if they don't?
It all depends what Neil can do now. They've got a person. I think they've taken a little bit too long to get a new manager in. I think they've taken a really long time considering, but they're in about it as if I don't think they need to do much to change what Lee Johnson was doing in a sense when they were winning. They're very yo-yo-y kind of thing with the performance of one week they can beat someone else, the next week they seem to struggle. If he can get everything playing right and do well, then they've got an excellent chance of doing it. But they need to pick up a lot of victories now between end of the season. And I think you did a league table showing people what would happen if it was a 1-1 and 1-0 and where teams would be. Dan?
Yeah, I find it through to you,
yeah. And it was interesting to see what happened. It's like if you can pick up a couple of points, you'll do all right. And I think they'll still be in and around it. They've got enough to do so.
Lizzie's asked a question to us all. Do we think Neil was the right appointment? I think time will tell on that one. I'm surprised that Sunderland didn't go for Grant McCann. We know him all too well from being at Donny. A very good manager who I think should be managing at championship level. I'm surprised they didn't go with him. What about you guys? Neil, right appointment or not?
We both did exactly the same
thing.
We
did, didn't we?
I think the deathly silence says it all.
He had got teams that league before, so that's the advantage he's got. So he does know how to get teams out of League One.
Yeah.
Can I just add to that as well before we move on very quickly? The referee there, Simon Mather, kept incredibly busy, wasn't he? I think I saw 11 yellows and a second for a red in there in the space of 90 minutes. And something look at all the fouls and yeah. So anyway, I just thought you wouldn't have thought
he earned his money that day.
He did, absolutely.
I know it's close to Valentine's Day, but those card issuing is a different level. Like I say, very busy referee in that one. Moving on to Morecambe 1, Gillingham 1, and this really is a result that does neither any favours, but it's one of those 6-pointers that you don't want to lose when you're down there, but you really need to be winning. Abika, lovely finish. Kind of turned his man a little bit too easy. Conditions looked horrible, but yeah, I think Morecambe had chances to win it on that one as well. Thoughts on these, Tom? Do you reckon these two are going down, or do you reckon one of them could avoid the drop? I mean, Harris, a bit of a resurgent for Gillingham at the minute.
Yeah, definitely. They're two sides that are right down there, aren't they? And I would have probably said before the arrival of their new manager that Morecambe, had they won this game that they've drawn, I would say they've probably got more of a shot at staying up than Gillingham have. The only reason why I would say that is because of Cole Stockton and his impact. And although he hadn't scored there, I think he had a really, really good game again. And he might just be the difference maker for Morecambe between playing League One football and League Two football next season. I don't know whether Gillingham have had too many really poor results to mean that they are down and out of it. I know the guy who does the Gillingham videos quite well, and he was quite pessimistic when I saw him, and that was back in October, November time, really. Yeah. So, I think it will be probably for me one of those two will stay up and one of them will go down. And I'd probably go Morecambe for Cole Stockton to stay up.
Yeah. Was it Jill's in the Blood TV who you spoke to?
That's the one.
Yeah, very good. Another good content creator. We'll shout everybody out on this channel. I don't care.
I'm still very surprised Harry went to Gillingham. I still think he's quite a decent manager high up. So it sounds like it's one of those ones he just wanted to get back into football ASAP.
Yeah. But yeah, with Jill's in the Blood TV, I think the pessimism has turned into a bit more optimism, especially with the appointment of Harris. I think he's starting to see light at the end of the tunnel. So yeah, check his Twitter feed out, and this optimism is flowing from that channel at the minute. Yep. Moving on to Accrington 4, Crewe 1, and this is a result that helped the Rovers out. And Accrington, a very good team at the minute. Talk to us about it, Jake.
I'm worried going into this one. We got them next.
Yeah.
They look very, very good. And they're that team at the minute where they could surprise people. They're scoring a lot of goals. They're playing some good football. I know it Crewe and Crewe. They are near the bottom. I know situation. Good goals as well. But the Accrington Stanley team, they never know when to die. They really just keep going, don't they? Got them set up really well. 15 shots, 8 on target. Yeah, they didn't have a lot of the ball, but when they did have the ball, they've managed to do the counter-attacking thing that they're very good at. They get going, and they've got a Wednesday lad at the minute, so I'm probably going to see them go against us the Wednesday way. but
all 4 of these goals came from set pieces. We were talking before we went live Wednesday, conceding a lot of set pieces. So, yeah, this could be a concerning one for Sheffield Wednesday fans going into.
I don't want to. I'm going to be away on that day.
I don't want to do it. Get your drinks ready for anybody who is playing the drinking game, because it is Cheltenham 2, Fleetwood 0, and little Alfie May is probably one of the few ex-Rovers players that I'm enjoying watching and quite happy that they've progressed so well. When he was in our squad, do I think he'd be a player who could break into that squad with the players that we had? I think he left at the right time, but in terms of his progression and his development, can't fault the lad, and he's doing superbly at this level. He scored 14 now, I believe. Yeah, 14th goal in all competitions this season. A fantastic return for Alfie May. So yeah, drink up if you're playing the drinking game. And to finish this result off, Charlie Raglan on the 45th minute put Fleetwood to bed, and Lizzie's back in with a klaxon. There we go. It's like she had it ready. But yeah, Cheltenham, another team that came up from League Two and have done well this season. Any thoughts on Cheltenham, guys?
I was going to say, I think they're a bit of a mediocre sort of season, haven't they? But massive for them being back in League One. But in terms of when we look at it from the outside in, I just feel so sorry for Fleetwood. And another little mini shout out alert, but my good friend Ben, who's coming down to Pompey at the end of the month, so looking forward to seeing him. But yeah, they're really poor at the minute, Fleetwood. Their responses to second balls as well, I think there's one of the worst sides I've seen, trying to deal with a ball back in.
It's weird as well, because they were looking like they turned a corner and they were starting to look like they were getting somewhere. It seems like it's gone backwards again. And we were talking about pitch with Wednesday. Their pitch at the minute is dreadful.
This week it looks Fleetwood, but
it's Fleetwood, one of those teams that they could probably just pull it out, because they are very good at picking out those results where they need them, but they need to be beating teams that are in and around them.
You think about the Plymouth game that they had at their place and being able to come back from behind. I think also you asked about Cheltenham, Daniel. They've had some really big results recently, like beating Sunderland, a point against Wigan. It's 3 points yesterday. I think they'll be absolutely fine this season, because that's exactly what you're calling for, isn't it? And they got the goal music's horrendous. When you're 1-0, 2-0 down there at Fleetwood, you're like, does life get any worse than this? But yeah, I mean, that's exactly what Fleetwood need to do: pick up big results against big teams, win the games around them, and should model themselves on Cheltenham, because they're doing all right, aren't they?
Yeah, doing very well. But yeah, that goal music needs banning. So we've got 3 games left. We'll skip to the 0-0 MK Dons against Ipswich. Don't want to finish on a 0-0, do we? 7,000 fans travelling from Ipswich to Milton Keynes. And at this level, that is something else, isn't it? So credit where it's due. Over 7,000 fans travelling. Plenty of shots. Well, I say plenty of shots. Shots for both teams. I think it's 2 teams that have cancelled each other out. 2 very good League One teams at the minute. Both kind of in form in the table, but yeah, for me, cancelled each other out, and probably a fair result at 0-0. But at least the 7,000 fans didn't see a defeat. But yeah, quality support. I mean, you guys both follow very big clubs as well, who are well supported. Have you ever seen anything like that? Over 7,000 at a League One game?
We took 8K
I think we've
to
done
MK.
It before. Well,
I was going to say, it's quite a tradition of big clubs to take.
Big clubs normally, if they've got a big stadium, we normally take our full allocation.
Well,
sorry, Dan.
I'll let you guys flex. I think we took about 300. You think?
Go on. Sorry, I was just going to say that I think it's fair to say that they cancelled each other out. On the balance of play, probably Ipswich perhaps deserving of the points more than MK Dons. That's not with Alex Griffin tinted glasses on by any stretch of the imagination. But and I think had the 3 points gone in had the 3 points gone in Ipswich's favour, that might have swung the argument of playoffs a little in their favour, perhaps. Single point, I think it's just a little bit too much of a stretch for Ipswich now, if I'm honest. Although they are still above us in the table, I think we're going to get in the playoffs, but we won't mention that.
We'll have a look at that at the table at the end. We've got 2 games left to go. Lincoln 1, Wycombe 1, and a red card in this one as well. But
Be right back, mate. Just carry on.
Oh, see you in a bit, Jake.
He's off.
Is that enough?
He's gone. He's seen Lincoln Wycombe and gone, oh, this is too much for me.
Yeah, I don't want to have any part in this. I'm gone. But yeah, with Lincoln, they're kind of looking over the shoulder at the minute. We've got them on Tuesday. The worst home record in the league, but to get a draw against Wycombe,
It's not bad, is it?
No, it's commendable, isn't it? But you look at the stats for Wycombe: 28 shots, but only 6 on target. That's disappointing from a Wycombe point of view. You'd be expecting to get much more on target than that, and potentially get the goal or the extra goal to win the game. Any thoughts on Wycombe, Tom?
It's actually a Josh Scowen 1 early yellow card, and it's a second yellow in the 90 plus 3 minutes as it goes, which is bit of a strange one, but there we are. It looks like John Marquis had a quiet game, who's a man that we could have hour-long conversations about between us.
Definitely.
Yeah, let's just hope that Lincoln claim 1 less point than they did for their next game.
Fingers crossed. Cheers, Tom.
That's all right.
At least this is one way you didn't have the VAR klaxon. They got back to winning wave, Wycombe, and they look good. Will Keynes, again, he's a very good player for this level. He's a very, very good player for this level. I was always wondering where his career was going to go, because he never had a really good time when he was at Manchester United. He always had injuries, and he seems like one of those players as he got older, he coming into the best parts of his career because he'd been injured so many times. Again, Charlton, they're very, very... They've lost that little bit of a spell they had under Jackson. It looks like they're having games where they're having to try and figure stuff out. It's like the magic's worn off a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, that new manager bounce has kind of worn off. But Wigan coming into this one off of a bit of a mini blip, and they've turned that around, and it looked like that blip could have continued with Charlton going ahead on the 7th minute. But like I say, Will Keynes popping the penalty away and then turning it around with Stephen Humphries on the 74th minute. Quick question for you guys. So Anthony's joined the stream. Probably missed a conversation about the Wednesday about the corner. Debatable if it's gone out. I don't think it has. Do we need VAR in lower leagues?
We can't afford it,
in my opinion.
Simple fact is, lower league can't afford VAR. If you go in,
would you want it if they could though?
I don't know. I'd rather just see the game flow.
Yeah.
And just,
what about yourself, Tom?
I'd say a stonewall no to that, just because I'm actually quite a fan of celebrating goals when they go in and not having to worry about if it's not going to be a goal. Although we do have some horrendous goal music, I'd rather the goals be scored than get chalked off. I think, to be honest, for me, we could go on for ages about referees, and we've touched on them already, but more than VAR needed at this division, I think a real look into the standard of officiating in League 1 and 2. And the fact that I only recently found this out, but they can literally chuck National League referees in their first season straight into a League 1 game, because they go straight into League 1 and 2 as a kind of level, and then they are selected for Championship, Premier League, FIFA, etc. So it was a good example, actually, for our game against Oxford United a couple of weeks ago. We had a guy called Samuel Barrett was our referee that day, and he's literally had about 20 games in League 1. And you just think, and he actually gave a red card on 15 minutes, which we were surprised didn't get overturned, and we appealed for. So for me, the argument isn't should VAR be implemented, because they can't even get it right in the Premier League at the minute, let alone down here in League 1. And we, if you don't go to a Tuesday night game, you've watched your team on iFollow with one camera, and it's crap anyway. So for them to try and make decisions out of the camera technology we've got at the moment is just a no from me. And I think
some
the
of the
referee,
camera angles in League One are questionable.
yes, exactly. And sometimes you get a bit of the pitch obscured and all sorts, don't you? So it's how can they make a decision when they can't see half the pitch? But yeah, I mean, for me, it's a referee issue, not a VAR one, personally.
But there isn't enough referees as it is as well to come into the game. And the problem is a lot of referees do a couple of games and then the confidence get hit when they come across that veteran who've been playing Sunday League or whatever National League for years, and he's a bit mouthy. And I think as much as we criticise referees, we've also got to remember it's a very hard job for them to do as well. They've got the split second, and I think but VAR good if it's implemented well. There's different leagues in the world who implement it very, very well. I just think the way the Premiership implements it is really poor.
Hopefully it evolves in the Premier League, and it is used as a tool to benefit the game. But I think we're all in agreement that we don't want VAR down here. We like football as football, and as we said earlier in the show, it's all about opinions, and VAR kind of takes that bit away from it for me. And like Tom said, when a goal goes in, you just want to celebrate it and not fear that it's going to get chalked off. Unless you're at Fleetwood and you just don't want to hear that goal music. So, but before we finish off, because we're ticking up to the 50-minute mark, and that 50 minutes has absolutely flown by, we will go through the table, looking at the bottom as we always do. Donny, it's not looking good. 22 points. There's still plenty to play for, but I think Donny and Crew probably the two teams out of those bottom four who were pretty much nailed on for going down. Gillingham or Morecambe potential of getting out of that, Fleetwood and Wimbledon potential of going into that, but then Shrewsbury, Lincoln, Cambridge, maybe Cheltenham looking over the shoulders a little bit, but I think the mini table is from 19th down to 24th. Agree with that, guys, or do you think I'm off the mark?
Yeah, no, I think you're spot on with that.
Beautiful. On to the top of the table then.
That was simple.
So, Tom, talk to us about Portsmouth. 44 points, playoffs 53, so it's not out of reach, surely.
No, it's not. I think we worked it out. When we had 17 games left to go, which is before we played you, we would have needed probably 11 wins and then a couple of draws and a couple of losses to consider ourselves in that conversation. For me, the only thing in visualising it there makes it even more apparent to me. But look at the teams between us and where that all-important playoffs are. You've got some big teams in that little gap there, haven't you? I wouldn't like to say it's beyond us because, as you can see, we've turned those X's into green ticks in the last couple of weeks, which is nice to see. And if we can continue in that vein, then we'll have to see what happens. Bolton's form won't stay the way it is. Because it's just not sustainable for them. No. Rotherham, look at that at the top of the league. That's absolutely atrocious, isn't it? How are we going to have 5?
Do we think we're going to win their games in hand?
Liam Richardson's an incredibly good manager, and he was massively sort of puppeting Paul Cook around during his time at Pompey. I think he was real brains behind what Cookie was doing. But we always know games in hand, especially in League One, when it's a cold Tuesday night, wherever they have to play them, even that caliber of a Wigan side, I wouldn't back them to win every single one of them. If they do win every single one of them, I still don't think they're going to catch Rotherham for the title, are they? Really?
They're up for me.
So, and then we're looking at Sunderland as well. I mean, if they continue in the vein they are at the moment, they need to be very, very careful. I know the new manager effect didn't quite come to fruition as we were speaking about with the Wimbledon game, but if they can turn things around, or if they continue the way they are, then they could see themselves plummeting. There's some really ambitious sides between. I'll be honest, I think we're the very last team that you could consider to be challenging for it. I don't think Accrington, Stanley, Burton, you can look that low, because I would have thought probably by the time you're looking at Burton, Charlton, look, Charlton aren't even on the screen properly, are they? So let's not even bother talking about those. But yeah, I mean, we'll have to see. It'll be a real dogfight, but we'll wait and see what comes for the next few weeks. So
that's Tom's thoughts on Portsmouth getting into the playoffs. Jake, Chef Wednesday, playoffs. What do you think?
We need to be consistent. If we can get consistency and go on a little mini run that we've just been on now, and grind out either 1 or 2-0 wins, and then go for a couple of draws. Our problem is the teams we've got coming up are yourselves. We've got Fleetwood, we've got Accrington, Stanley, Charlton. They're the teams we normally mess up against. It's the teams where we go through that whole. Big clubs in League One sometimes have this stupid mentality. It's only such and such of a team. It's only Donny, so you don't turn up. And we tend to have a really bad example of doing that. So if we don't do that, and some of the games we've got coming up, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. I said at that season we'd be mid-table. If we get playoffs, I'm happy with. And I think if we get playoffs, that credit to Darren Moore with an astounding job he's done at Wentworth without having to spend any cash or any resources in touch because of
especially with the injuries as well.
Yeah. Don't tell me about our injuries.
But that's Tom and Jake's thoughts on who's going to get into the playoffs. I think there's going to be twists and turns up until the end of the season. Rotherham doing very well. Wigan with the games in hand. It's a good league to keep an eye on if you like your lower league football.
Who wins the playoffs, Daniel?
I think it'll depend on who gets in at the end of the season. So I think if Portsmouth, for example, get that good run and they go into the playoffs with momentum, and you've got the likes of Sunderland who could potentially still be in there but hit and miss, I think you've got a good shout for whoever nicks that final spot with that momentum to then take that into what is a lottery. So I'm going to stick my neck out and say whoever nicks that final spot, I think will go on.
6th place.
What about yourselves?
We're both going to say each other, aren't we? I would imagine.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Wednesday in Portsmouth.
There you go.
Easy as that. But that's where we're going to leave this one. Thank you for Dan sitting on the fence. What? I didn't. Did I?
I don't think you did.
I thought I'd gone in then. But yeah, that's where we're going to leave this one. Thank you guys for joining me for a very long episode. Like I say,
sorry, that's probably my fault, but
not to worry. We started early so that we could go on a little bit longer and still have a decent night's sleep. So, once again, thank you for joining me. Thank you for sharing your expertise on your team and League One as a whole. As we said at the start of the video, please go ahead and follow Chef41 and 4-0 written all over it. Their socials are in the description down below. A little plug from me, you'll see some shirts behind me. I'm playing for Evestrust Dreams Trust in the charity game again this year for the 3rd and final time. Doncaster Rovers versus Sheffield Wednesday on the 7th of May. A link to the donation page is in the description down below. Every penny will help massively towards a charity that's close to my heart. So thank you very much. Thanks for joining me, guys. I hope you have a safe weekend and enjoy the rest of the season. All that's left for me to say is if you've enjoyed it and you're watching on repeat, please stick a big thumbs up on it. Comments in the section down below. I will try to get in touch with all of you. Subscribe if you haven't already. As always, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.
See ya.